actually the bigger deal.
Yeah, usually getting the coin as rogue is just a plus. Having your opponent's rogue not having the coin is also a plus, so it's kind of like 2 pluses all together, and it's what makes these mirror matches fairly lopsided, usually, I have to say.
Did Lothar just keep sprint in his opening hand?
Wow. I'm not too sure about that, if he did.
I don't actually know if that was a keep or if that was a mulligan and it just got replaced.
Yeah, I definitely saw sprint in his opening hand, so I'm not sure if he kept it or if it just got replaced, as you said.
Well, if he kept it, it's going to pay off in spades. Wow, that preparation is a big pickup.
Exactly. Unfortunately, Lothar's not going to be able to have any good plays this turn, at least. This gives Sjow an opportunity to go for that Van Cleef, but how big does he actually want to make it?
He drew back-to-back sprints, too. I'm guessing he's just going to go for a 4-4 here. It's threatening enough.
There we go.
Short of something like backstab SI7 agent, this really isn't going to get answered very efficiently.
Yeah, Eviscerate obviously also does 4 damage, but you're going to have to be looking for something to combo with the Eviscerate. Deadly Poison would be okay normally, but as we can see from Sjow's hand, from Lothar's hand, absolutely nothing.
So many.
War, dun. What is good for? Absolutely nothing.
Oh, that cool, admirable sound.
This is a really rough turn. He's going to be facing down some pretty brutal swings. I actually think I would like to see him put a damage to his opponent's face and then dagger up again. And prepare for the coming effect of Violet Teacher into Prep Blade Flurry. So I think he should be poisoning up right here.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. If he doesn't poison up right here, then he doesn't have a way to deal with this Edwin even in the next turn. And recursive damage from the Edwin Van Cleef can just oftentimes be too much.
Wow, Pratt's a big Pratt pickup. Both of these players end up having Prep Sprint in this game. I'm not sure who's going to be able to utilize it better. I imagine it's going to be whoever ends up having the lead on the board.
Yeah, exactly. And right now, Sjow has the board, but we can see that's probably swing around completely with that preparation.
That really changes. That Eviscerate is a huge pickup right now, too. This is going to let him keep his Blade Flurry and keep a dagger.
Exactly, and not only that, but like anything that that Sjow plays on the board now can have the possibility of getting Blade Flurry.
Yeah, preparation or slap would have been a good draw from Lothar that turn. You know, even backstab wouldn't have been too bad. He would have lost his dagger in the process, but it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. And now Eviscerate's picked up for Sjow.
It's all right, I guess. It allows him an answer to the Violet Teacher, but it's a fairly inefficient answer.
Gosh, and if he doesn't invest heavily into this board this turn, he's going to end up getting Lothabbed. And that's going to be terrible news. He doesn't know that Lothab's there, and I think he's going to be hard-pressed to actually account for it. There's not really just much you can do about it.
This is actually a very similar situation as to what we saw in Kolento versus Savitz, where Savitz, in the Rogue Mirror matchup, he just got the Violet Teacher down, and he followed it up with a Lothab, which just completely locked his opponent out of the game.
Well played.
That is really bad news for Sjow right now. He's gonna run. I'm like shocked looking at it. I'm like, oh gosh, this is gonna be so ugly.
Yeah, Lothab's gonna come down. If Lothar hadn't come down in any other card like an Azure Drake, this would have been so good for Sjow right now. He just has a lot of spells, just a lot of ways to utilize his hand. But I think we're going to see a counter Lothar down. Again, it's pretty much mirroring what we saw from Kolento versus Savitz.
Yeah, this is really close in terms of that actual match of the lineup. Dagger and these two little dorks going to end up taking out Lothar, and then 8 points of damage is going to be swinging across the board. It's just so much.
Yeah, even though both players played Lothar, it's just the player that already had the board that had such a huge advantage.
You know, something else, though, is that Lothar might not feel like he wants to use this poison quite yet because he has 2 copies of Blade Flare in his hand. This may influence the way he chooses to approach this Lothar.
This turn actually isn't the greatest for Lothar. In fact, I'd say it's one of the worst for Lothar because he only has spells in his hand right now, and they're, again, all locked out by his opponent's Lothar. So you might see Sjow actually coming back in this game, especially with his own Blade Flurry in hand. We saw preparation plus Eviscerate was what brought Lothar back into the game, and something like a big Blade Flurry with, if you draw something like Poison or Tinker Sharpsword Oil, could bring Sjow back.
Definitely could. A couple of draws are really good for him now. I'd still would like to see Lothar take an aggressive stance here. I want him to keep his Lothar and his Violet Teacher fresh.
Yeah, I would say so as well. You can always just play Sprint in the next turn, and then from the Sprint, you can just draw even more buffs to your weapon. So I'm sure he'll be able to utilize the Blade Flurries effectively in future turns.
Yeah. Ooh, Backstab. I'm not sure it's going to get too much done. He can start to check the board position, but he's got a lot of work to do until he gets to that point.
I think, okay, Backstab, I think it might be all right with the, you know what, if he had one more mana, he could do something like Thalnos, Backstab, SI, Eviscerate, but he unfortunately can't do everything at once at this point.
It looks like it's going to be Thalnos, Eviscerate, and Dagger.
What about Thalnos, Backstab, SI?
I think that's also a possibility. I think he just really wants to get a Dagger on board, though, in preparation for something like drawing Sharp Sword Oil or drawing... speaking of Sharp Sword Oil, oh, geez.
The thing is, the Violet Teacher is usually something that's really great in Rogue, but it actually doesn't have the best synergy with Tinker Sharp Sword Oil. If you use the Sharp Sword Oil, what happens is the Violet Teacher actually summons a 1/1 before the oil activates, and you have the possibility of landing the oil on your 1/1 token instead of your Violet Teacher.
Say Sharp Sword Oil 5 times fast.
Yeah, exactly.
I still like
Sharp Sword Oil.
I still like fan Sharp Sword Oil, and hope to get the job done. I mean, if he lands the 33% on the oil, it's just such a mega benefit. I do like Sprint as well, though. This is going to give him a ton of options, so he's going to be able to combo this oil very nicely. Picks up a second one even. Oh my gosh, this is just so much stuff.
Yeah, exactly what he needs. He not only has, he just has all his combo potential for the late game right now. Exactly what he wants in his hand. He has the Poison, he has the Sharp Sword Oil, he has the Blade Flurry, and the Haha. So much damage. So much damage potential going to Sjow's face in just the next turn.
Well, it's at least 12 just from Poisons and Blade Flurry. So if this is not stopped immediately, this is going to spell the end here. And I imagine he's going to sweep this out with his Blade Flurry. Getting that point of damage first, though. There you go.
And yeah, it's certainly not the most threatening board.
I still think it actually does it because of the haha.
Yeah, I believe so. Lothar.
Looks like it looks like, I'm sorry, not exactly though. It looks like exact mana, and then just way overkill.
Yeah, I see the Deckhand, Poison, Oil, and then Blade Flurry. It's exactly that amount of mana.
Yeah, so big numbers.
Yeah. How much is it actually?
It looks like 17.
Yeah, 17, way more than enough.
Yeah, so big numbers being put up for Lothar in this first game. He's going to take a 1-0 lead, and I think a sigh of relief when you win the Rogue Mirror, because it feels like this one's kind of, it's up to the gods as opposed to up to the players sometimes. I feel like it's just a matter of, does player A have the tools to deal with what player B throws at them? And then if you just kind of allocate your aggression correctly, that's when it's really up for grabs, is when someone doesn't allocate their aggression correctly, when someone's trying to focus on responding to board positions rather than creating problems for their opponent.
The issue is that Rogue, oftentimes it has the tools to not only respond to their opponent's board positions, but on the same turn develop their own board positions. And we saw that clearly in that turn where Lothar played the Violet Teacher Prep Eviscerate, landing not only killing off not only the Edwin Van Cleef, but also the 3/3 Farseer, and developing a Violet Teacher and 2 tokens of his own. Sjow just didn't have what he needed to deal with that, even though he was at an incredible lead in the previous turn with his board position.
Yeah, I mean, the Violet Teacher is really spelling a lot of how much power this rogue deck actually has. When it's drawn Violet Teacher and had preparation, it's had very strong starts and strong follow-ups, but we kind of see it falling by the wayside when all it does is just answer stuff turn after turn and doesn't really get anything going. I feel like that's where it's having its major problems, is when it, frankly, it doesn't draw Violet Teacher, it doesn't draw SI7 Agent, and doesn't get a big Van Cleef, like a 6/6 or something, very early on.
Now, unfortunately, Lothar's rogue is going to be eliminated, but Sjow will still have the option to play his rogue against the remainder of Lothar's lineup, which includes a mage and a druid. Do you think he'll be actually want to play rogue against mage and druid?
I can see him doing it. I think that rogue is going to line it well versus druid, and then versus the mage, I think it's going to line up pretty darn good. In fact, I would say that's one of the reasons why rogue has been having so much success, is because mage has been such a popular deck. Now, that being said, it wouldn't surprise me to see him switch it in case he thought he had a few more advantages on either side of this board, but looks like he's just going to go for this rogue again. I mean, I can't blame him. I think this is the matchup. I think this is one of the matchups he's looking for, but a pretty strong start from Lothar already with turn 1 and 2 Mad Scientists. I'd like to see him pitch away those 2 4-drops.
Yeah, this hand, I would say 90% of the time goes really well, but then you have the 10% of the time where you mulligan away the Blast Mage and the Pilot Shredder, and you get back 2 Mirror Entities, right? And that is just the worst opening hand you can possibly start with Mech Mage.
You know, it's a good thing you point that out, because that actually may influence his decision. He actually may want to just keep this opening hand to reduce the number of times he draws Mirror Entity. I wasn't even really considering that.
Yeah, we've actually seen in a lot of tournaments recently where that exact draw has happened. I know Savitz had an opening hand like that in the Invent Invitational, and he actually made the game a little closer than it could have been, but it was still just a terrible hand for any deck to draw, both the Mad Scientist and both the Secrets.
Definitely can look up some of your draws, so Lothar's going to be thinking about this one. You know, I kind of like keeping one of them. Archmage Antonitis of no real use for a very long time. But I think, again, just very happy to not draw Mirror Entity. And I think that's why he's keeping on the Pilot Shredder, just to make sure that he reduces the chance that happens.
Mad Scientist immediately going to come onto the field. Now, I feel like Rogue is a deck that actually can fairly deal with the Mad Scientist well, just because it has a lot of weak minions in its deck. We saw Ha-Has in pretty much every Rogue, and we even see some of the Goblin Auto Barbers, which kind of answer themselves, basically. If you summon an Auto Barber with a weapon in your hand, your weapon gets buffed to 2 attack, which immediately takes care of the Barber that you summoned for your opponent.
We forgot that Lothar had Counterspell in his Mech Mage deck. That was something we didn't account for. So when you have a Mirror Entity down, you can actually get a second secret from this, and that, I imagine that would really throw off a lot of people. I think you can kind of conclude that it is Counterspell at some step of the way, but it's certainly not an easy one to do. So Sjow going to take his time answering this.
Yeah. I feel, unfortunately for Lothar, he actually revealed his counterspell in his very first match against Sjow. So I think if Sjow has done his scouting, he'll know that counterspell is indeed a possibility.
Yeah, so counterspell is actually coming down right here, and this may throw off again how Sjow chooses to approach this, because I imagine the vast majority of the time he is going to account for this being a mirror entity. So like if he just preps this turn, his prep's going to get burned, that sprint's going to get strained in his hand for a bit. Oh my gosh, and Shjow's about to get some really bad news. He thinks it's Mirror Entity that's down. And now he's going to get a second secret. And now Shjow's like, what's going on?
If you saw it from his face, he actually looked very surprised, which leads me to believe that he might not have scouted this deck as much as we thought.
He's trying to navigate through the positions. Is this second one duplicate? I think that's what he's thinking about right now. And then he's going to see that the second secret was Mirror Entity. And now he's got to be really confused.
Does he actually, the thing is, he's not sure if it's duplicate or counterspell, so he can't actually burn a spell to test for it, even.
Lothar can even get his second Mirror Entity out right now by just attacking and then pinging.
Oh my god. Even though that would be a great play, I feel like this develops the board slightly more.
Yeah, I think I would just favor an attack too. But I'm just, he could have done that. So he's going to trade the 3-3 in. I actually don't like the 3-3 trade. I would have liked to see him just put that damage to face. He's got Fireball in his hand. He's got Lothar already. He just has so much pressure behind what's happening that I don't feel like he really needed to make that trade.
Lion Teacher is certainly going to come down here. He could actually play the Azure Drake actually and go for the 3 damage backstab, but he's definitely accounting for the possibility of the counterspell right now at this moment. So that's kind of more of a risky move. With this play, he can play the backstab to test for counterspell, or he can play the deadly poison also to test for counterspell, and he just has more options of what to play.
Really taking his time to figure this one out. This is actually a really tough turn to navigate. If he plays the Azure Drake, he can also just test for the backstab with the preparation, and not really think too much of it. I think at this point he's been able to kind of figure it out. Like, it wasn't duplicate, it wasn't. It's not like it's almost certainly not going to be something like Spellbinder or anything like that. Even if it is, it's you're kind of getting sunk in the same way. So I think he's kind of figured that out and see what he reaches for. Oh, he's going to find out that it's counterspell.
I don't think Sjow is too surprised there.
Yeah, I don't think he's too surprised either, but that still hurts. It's just so much potential damage on the other side of the board. Lothar picks up a second Fireball, and this damage, I mean, this better be going for face. Yeah, there's just no brainer about this. Once you get the second Fireball, this game's all but over right now.
Yeah, what can Sjow do? Like, he can play a minion. He has a choice of minions, I guess, but after that, all his spells are locked out. And it feels especially bad because you drew double preparations, and if Lothar hadn't come down, you could have gotten down some pretty sick plays.
So many options.
Really timely stuff.
Pay attention, class.
Gosh, this feels awful.
Yeah, awful indeed. There's not even many good trades on the board right now.
He's actually not even going to go for like a pilot. I'm sorry, like a Doomsayer or anything. He's just going to pass the turn back, and he's got to get the bad news. That's going to be game 2 over Lothar. A very quick one with Lothar shutting out the game. A 2-0 lead right now, and so he's got 3 chances to win with his last deck. Wow, that is some crazy stuff. Counterspell, I think, quite literally won Lothar that game.
Yeah, so definitely a great pick from Lothar, putting in the counterspell in his deck. Just that one tech card, it confused Sjow so much that I think he could have played better around it if he knew his opponent was running counterspell, because he definitely looked very surprised when 2 secrets came onto the field.
Yeah, it's something else that's happening there is I don't feel like we talked about this enough, but Sjow played the game against the mad scientists a little bit differently than I think a lot of people would. So most of the time I see people just kill mad scientists straight away and not really think too much about it, but Sjow really took his time, and it ended up costing him a lot of damage or a lot of life in the long run by spreading out the amount of time it took for him to kill these mad scientists. And the purpose behind that, of course, is he's trying to delay the impact of Mirror Entity. He wants something on the board so that going into a Mirror Entity turn, he actually has initiative and can kind of take advantage of the fact that it's there. But when he took that much time, he took so much damage from it. Do you think he should have continued to play in that same vein, or do you think he should have done something differently to try to fight against the mad scientists early and not let them deal so much damage?
I think he had to play what he had in his hand at that moment, and what he had was no ha-has, no goblin auto barbers, just nothing that would have been great for your opponent to mirror entity. And I feel like that's more of the strength of the mad scientist rather than Sjow just not playing, not taking the correct lines of play. The double mad scientist opening is just so strong that it's probably the strongest opening in the Mech Mage deck besides Mech Warper plays. So Sjow, no matter what, he could have been in a pretty tough position.
Yeah, I'm not gonna outright say it's a mistake or anything. I'm just curious, like in this particular instance, could he have done something else to kind of fight against it? Because they just added up to so much damage in the end. And it's just, oh gosh, it's just painful. I hate taking that much damage. I don't like people dealing me damage. Game 3 is going to be underway. It's Warrior versus Druid. Lothar needs one more win to close out this series, and Sjow has queued up a Warrior. He knows that he has to win this matchup straight away. So rather than wait, he says, let's do this. Let's find out if he's going to win or not, because this is a matchup I think Sjow does not want to face.
Yeah, definitely not. I think with this pick, it's just about getting it over with. If he loses now, he's out of the tournament, but he doesn't have to play 2 more matches, and he can maybe do something else with his day. But if he wins his first two matches against maybe more favorable matchups in the form of his own druid and his own rogue, and then he gets to the warrior, he might be like, oh man, I've gotten this far, and to lose in this scenario where I'm tied 2-2 would just be heartbreaking.
Yeah, I think Trump would approve of that value sense of time. Win the hard matchup first. Bad news first. I'm a bad news first kind of guy.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Just to get the bad stuff over with.
Yeah.
Now, Lothar, what do you think about his hand right now? A lot of players have actually keep Ancient of Lore in their opening hand against Warrior.
You know, this is something that I used to do a lot because it was such a favorable card, but right now I don't think it's right, and I think the reason it's not right, especially if he's running Harrison Jones, the reason I don't think it's right is because you want to find your way to wild growth and hope that you can supplement your curve, because cards like Piloted Shredder are going to be applying a lot of pressure to your opponent. So when you follow Piloted Shredder with Ancient of Lore, it's very good, but when you have Ancient of Lore kind of basically as being your lead in play, it doesn't end up really doing a lot. So this risk that he's taken, I feel like it's a little bit unnecessary. By the time you get to turn 7, you've already seen a third of your deck anyway, so the chances that you've drawn Ancient of Lore are very, very high by that point, especially if you have anything else in your deck that can draw cards. If he has Azure Drake, or if he's using Wraths to cycle them, or even in this case, just Harrison Jones. But right now he has no gas, and not to say that this one extra card would have given him what he needed to win, but these extra chances are what you're fishing for, not just the individual cards themselves.
Yeah, it's a very good point. As we can see, Lothar, he kept the Ancient of Lore, but unfortunately, because he kept it, he had one fewer chance to draw Enervates or Wild Growths. This leads Sjow to have a pretty strong opening few turns by just armoring and playing Armor Smiths, whereas Lothar, he doesn't even have that great of a play right now. I mean, Coin Sludge Belcher, is that it? And then he has to hope his opponent plays a weapon in order to play the Harrison Jones.
Yeah, I wouldn't honestly, this is going to sound awful, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him swipe this turn, but I would tend to favor something like Sludge Belcher. But again, Lothar, sort of the style that we've been seeing him play traditionally is that he likes to react to what his opponents are doing and try to figure out the puzzle from there. He doesn't really make a lot of proactive, risky style plays. He kind of likes to play very straightforward and take it one step at a time.
Yeah, Lothar is just mulling over this decision. Can he really afford to swipe an Armor Smith? You're trading a 4-mana spell for a 2-mana Armor Smith? I don't think so.
Yeah, I like the Sludge Belcher here too. Not only is a Sludge Belcher, I think, a superior play here just from like an efficiency standpoint, but I also think it's better because it's going to allow you to start cycling this Wrath away if you don't find yourself in a better position. I don't think Wrath is like critical to this matchup at all, and I think what is critical is digging to the right cards.
Unfortunately for Sjow, he doesn't have many good options to clear everything right now. He's gonna go for the Cruel Taskmaster Execute. If that were a Druid of the Cloud, this play would have been much better, but at least Sjow still has some fairly decent presence on the board right now.
Yeah, it's something that Lothar doesn't want to get trapped into doing also is using Keepers of the Grove too early. Like, using them for tempo sometimes is something you have to do, but with a draw like this one, I think it's something he wants to avoid because he's going to have to be fighting a really grindy game.
Oh, Wrath or Armor Smith, still not a trade that you want to see from the Druid player. You give your opponent extra health, and Wrath is one of your cards that can deal somewhat well with cards such as Shield Maiden or Sludge Belcher. So just blowing it off on an Armor Smith that only has one attack is probably not the greatest.
Yeah, he's looking to try to start recovering the board position, not let too much slip away. Like, if eventually he finds a spot to get a lot of damage out of it, you know, good stuff on him. But I'm not unhappy to see him kind of pitch it for the wayside here. Now,
I like this Sylvanas play over the Shield Maiden. Did you have something to say about it, Admirable?
Well, I was gonna say that the only thing that I have to add to that is I don't think he should be silencing this turn. That's the only thing I don't think he should be doing. I think he should just be swiping and trading in the shade and calling it a day. You have Dr. Boom next turn, potentially. You have an Ancient Allure for reload. You're not really worried about losing too much ground. You're at 32. You're not having a lot of pressure applied to you. Sjow didn't get an Acolyte draw, so he's not going to have all the answers in the world. And now this silence, I feel like it's kind of lost at this point. You get an extra body on the board, but
yeah,
he lost the Wrath, and that's really the big story. If he still had the Wrath, the silence would be totally fine.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, but More so because the Sylvanas, it just trades so well with the 2/4 minion of the Keeper of the Grove, or rather the 2/4 body of the Keeper of the Grove. And the same line, it's also the reason why even silencing Tyrion as the Druid isn't even the best trade for the Druid, because the body of the 6/6 Tyrion deals so well against the Keeper of the Grove. And that's why cards with just huge effects like Sylvanas and Tyrion are so great against Druid.
Yeah, Sjow just choosing to apply the pressure straight away, and I actually think he's going to get punished for this. Rather than trading. Not that I think it makes too much of a difference, but swipe here looks like about the best you're going to get. And actually, if he doesn't swipe here, you start being in trouble pretty soon.
Yeah, swipe. It's actually like swipe. You can see it in my camera. Yeah, it's I just imagine the Trump hands basically. I don't know if you watch the stream a lot, but every time he goes swipe, he actually does the motion with his hands.
Yep.
Yeah, swipe here seems like about the best you can get. You do float a mana, which I don't think Lothar, he's not a player that likes to float mana often, but yeah, he still goes with the play and he still has the initiative on board.
I think this is one of the spots where you just can't be too concerned with it. The other thing too is since he has the Harrison Jones, I'd like to see him just unveil Shade. I don't think you're going to get too much more value out of it. If he wants to save to protect against Shield Slam, that still makes sense. But I don't think he's saving to protect against Deathbite. I don't even think it's really a consideration for him at this point. If he saves it, I think it's specifically to make sure that he can shred all this armor before he puts his Shade at risk. But I kind of, the reason I don't like that though is because you have these two big threats in your hand. If he Shield Slam the Shade, I think you're just fine with it.
Yeah, I guess he's afraid of not only a Shield Slam, but a BGH in Show's hand, or so maybe something like 2 Shield Slams. That could be definitely a consideration.
Sjow said I've had enough armor for now. The onslaught begins.
All right, Sjow just wants to equip that weapon so he can use it in the next turn,
Yep.
but he also doesn't want to. He kind of hedges against Harrison Jones as well.
Yeah, I think this is a great spot to ignore the weapon. I think he's actually trying to get Harrison Jones out here. I would love to see Dr. Boomer just draw 2 cards.
Which of the 2 options would you think would favor? And also, do you finally unveil your Shade now? Because if you don't, the Acolyte will get an extra draw.
It's really tough to say. I think a lot of it depends on what cards you actually end up drawing. If you draw cards. But Dr. Boom, I feel like I don't want to Dr. Boom here because Show's been playing this game exceptionally slow, so something like Brawl comes to my mind. So if I played Ancient Allure, I think that I wouldn't attack the Acolyte of Pain.
Okay. So would you unveil the Shade at all? Because if you played Ancient of Lore, you're thinking about Brawl at the same time, and Brawl could be fairly devastating against an unveiled Shade.
Oh, did Lothar disconnect here?
We can still see Lothar's camera, so maybe he just disconnected from the client.
Yeah, I think he disconnected from the client. And it looked like he grabbed his iPad to try to play again as quickly as he could. Oh, geez. That's brutal. Yeah, it looks like he's trying to log on to his iPad as quickly as he could. That turn's going to be skipped, though. Show's going to try to figure out what's going on, so I'm certain he's going to be looking for an admin response right now.
Yeah, just don't worry, guys. Lothar is still with us right now, so at least I believe he will be able to get back into the game quite shortly.
Yeah, I guess it's like, I mean, that's really brutal to have a skip turn, though. And this game is still up in the air. It's like really anyone's game. I think the advantage is a little bit in Lothar's favor right now, but I mean, you can still see his camera. It definitely wasn't a disconnect from internet issues. It looked like a client error or a client disconnect of some sort.
Yeah, we're getting word for admins right now that Lothar will indeed play out the rest of this game on iPad, so it's not a lost game yet, guys. Yeah, and again, from the admins, it is indeed a client problem from Lothar's side. The Hearthstone client that crashed, and not anything to do with Lothar's connection.
Shieldblock comes in.
Yeah, Sjow being very mattered, taking his whole turn just so his opponent will have more time to get on his iPad.
Yeah, 21 armor. It's quite a bit, though. Oh my gosh, Lothar. Oh gosh, please be logged in. Don't skip 2 turns. No!
Oh man. And has Lothar's camera froze as well?
Yeah, that might be a freeze. Oh my gosh, and you saw him moving cards around too. When he tried to get something done. Oh, geez. Oh, that's brutal.
Again, I think Sjow will take up the entirety of his turn right now just to give Lothar as much time as possible. But he's shaking his head. He's down 0-2, but he doesn't want to win the game like this. He wants to win by his own merit.
Yeah, great showmanship here. Making sure he's taking his time. I'm certain he's trying to wait for what's going on. So yeah, so he's going to wait as long as he can for Lothar to be reconnected.
Yeah, but judging from this board state right now, Sjow had so much time to develop his board, his Shield Maiden, his
The 2 skip turns is definitely pretty difficult to come back from.
But I believe Lothar, is he back right now?
Yeah, he's gonna have to make these decisions really quickly too. So there's his card draw. Oh, I forgot that when you come back from the when it does like the quick timer, when you actually make a play, it resets your timer, I think.
Yep. Okay, so Lothar has turned his camera off in order to save his bandwidth, I guess. He will be able to play another 5-mana minion, so I guess not looking completely terrible, even though his he'll be fairly out-tempoed. And also, we've been focusing so much on the reconnect issue that we didn't even mention Kel'Thuzad in the hand of Sjow. And if Lothar plays additional minions, there's going to be so much value coming from Kel'Thuzad.
Not really much he can do about that at this point, though. Just chalking it up. Slam. It's going to be Sludge Belcher, I suspect. Yeah, just trying to prevent as many of the attacks as he can. It's going through. I don't think it's really consequential which one of these he decides to play.
Yeah, probably not. Looks like a fairly great turn from Sjow right now. He can use his Kel'Thuzad, he can revive pretty much all the minions, and then he can Shield Slam and execute along with the 10 mana. So
yeah,
he'll be able to put a Kel'Thuzad on board, he'll be able to revive everything, and he'll be able to clear the board from the opponent.
Pretty much cannot get a better situation than that. This is about the most value you can possibly get off Kel'Thuzad.
Yep, there we go. Everything's going to be cleared, and even though Lothar, he came back to this game, it was about 2 turns too late, and he's going to get extremely punished, and that might just be game right there. Like, what can Druid do to come back from this position?
Well, he's only going to deal 53 damage, so I think he's okay.
Yeah, the super combo.
Yeah, he needs like Force of Nature, Innervate Savage Roar, Innervate Savage Roar, Innervate Savage Roar, Innervate Savage Roar. Would that be enough? So it's 4 Savage Roars on 4 targets. So that's 32. Now, even that's not enough. So 32 plus 6, that's 38. Another 8 damage would be 44. Another 8 damage would be 52. And then another 8 damage would be enough. So he needs 7 Innervates, 7 Savage Roars, and a Force of Nature. No, he needs more than that because each
Savage Roar costs 3
Yeah,
mana.
I'm thinking they cost 2 mana. Okay, so 7 Innervates. He needs 10. He needs 10 Innervates, a coin, 7 Savage Roars, and a Force of Nature.
You need your opponent to have Trade Prince Gallowix on the field, basically.
You need an earthquake or a tsunami to happen on their end and have them. That's what you really need. Poor Lothar, man, disconnecting from this game when it was otherwise, I would say, in his favor, albeit by I think a slight margin. I think Kel'Thuzad is really going to pull a lot of weight this game. But he had Dr. Boom, he had Sludge Belcher, he had Pilot Shredder, he had Harrison Jones he could potentially leverage. Everything was going his way.
We're beginning to see more of Sjow's warrior deck, and we see just a lot of slower creatures. We haven't seen Dr. Boom yet, I believe, but we have seen some of the slower minions that kind of dodge VGH, such as the Kel'Thuzad and the Ysera.
Yeah, Ysera actually got some work done in one of the matches that we saw, and we haven't seen Dr. Boom yet. It's so crazy.
Oh man, a deck without Dr. Boom? Can you imagine?
No, I can't. That's bizarre.
All right, so even more threats on the field, and if Lothar couldn't deal with this Kel'Thuzad, how is he going to deal with a Ysera?
Well, there's the first Savage Roar. 9 more to go, or 6 more to go, and 10 Innervates.
Oh man, that's probably more cards than Lothar could possibly have in his deck remaining.
Yeah, he's just gonna skip this one up. I mean, he basically the disconnect was effectively a loss after 2 skip turns, so I can't blame anyone for letting go in that sort of situation. So Show's gonna put a notch on the board, 2 games to 1. I don't think it's a fashion he wanted to actually take a game in, but you know, I still think a little bit of relief to be on the board. So Warrior's gonna be locked for him now. He's got Druid and Rogue left, and Lothar has got 2 more chances to win with his Druid deck. I'm liking his chances here. I think that Rogue is going to be kind of a poor matchup for him, but Druid versus Druid, that's anyone's game. All right, so, oh my gosh. So the first 2 cards, Sjow and his mulligan, were just absolutely garbage. And the last card he got is like the saving grace of his hand, which is this Wild Growth. Show's draw not too bad either. He's got turn 3 Shade, no action on turn 4 yet, but he does have a turn 5 Lothar, which I think is actually pretty key in this matchup, because it doesn't allow if your opponent is behind on board at all, it doesn't allow them to like Wrath to catch back up. A lot of times it's going to force stuff like Keeper of the Grove to really even up the board position.
Now, normally when you have a Shade in hand as player 2, you really want to coin out that Wild Growth and get the Shade out as early as possible. But with this particular hand, I can definitely see an argument for actually keeping the coin and waiting to Wild Growth on turn 2, just because you don't have many options after that Shade. If you coin out the Wild Growth and Shade on turn 2, then turn 3 with 4 mana, you're going to be looking at Savage Roar or Hero Power.
Yeah, I'm not sure which way. I've kind of gone both ways when I'm doing this, but I still think I would tend to favor coining out Wild Growth. You do have 2 draws to find a second Shade or a 4-drop heading into those turns, so skipping your turn 4 isn't the worst thing in the world, because you can also just draw something like Swipe and have the Swipe, you know, potentially cut out one of your opponent's jobs during that time. So I think I would tend to coin out Shade here in favor trying to get a heavier curve. Now that being said, he does have Zombie Chow in his deck, so this might be cutting into the amount of 3-drops and 4-drops that he's actually running. So saving coin could be a bigger benefit to him if he needs it to say something to curve into something like, say, Dr. Boom, in case he has a few extra heavier drops.
Now, Lothar, I think, is obviously he can either play the Shade on this turn and get it developing earlier, or he can choose to play the Druid of the Claw. I think he's probably leaning towards the Shade right now, but if you play the Shade, do you also play the Zombie Chow?
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I would definitely play Zombie Chow here. You just need to do something to get the ball rolling. Again, he's got 2 Savage Roars in his hand, so it's not like he has a ton of options available to him. And Zombie Chow can add up to a few points of damage. Like, say that this has to go unchecked for a few turns simply because both of these guys are powering out minions and really getting things going. I like this Keeper of the Grove here too.
Yeah, Keeper of the Grove is going to come down, and Sjow is not going to reveal his Shade just right now. Sjow might be scared of something like a second Shade coming down on the field, plus a Hero Power weaved in. And the Zombie Chow trading for a Shade is just would be just so great of a deal for Sjow right now, especially because Sjow is still at 30 HP.
I've talked a lot about how taunting Druid of the Claws has really been the play since the metagame has developed the way it has, but I actually really wouldn't mind to see this charge in the 2/4.
If you charge in the 2/4, what are you really afraid of with the taunt though?
Well, with the taunt, what you're trying to do is you're trying to protect the Zombie Chow and make it like really inefficient for your opponent to deal with it. Like in a position like this, Swipe is going to deal with it basically the exact same way that anything else would have dealt with it. The difference here is that you do open yourself up to a couple of possibilities. Like this is creating a lot of board tension, so if he's comfortable with that, that's fine. But he has 2 copies of Savage Roar in his hand. He doesn't have a big turn 6 action other than the Dr. Boom, and that's just going to continue to create more board tension. So the fact that he's got 2 Savage Roars is a blessing in that nature, in that you could just end the game with a bunch of minions on the board and having 2 Savage Roars be a blowout. But when this is happening, you're really putting a lot of pressure on yourself if your opponent has swipes in a situation like this.
Yeah, just a pretty clean Lothar is going to come down. Sjow, even though he hasn't seen a lot of Lothar's cards in his deck, he's still afraid of that Black Knight.
Yeah, Lothar actually shuts off the Dr. Boom here too, so that's a really big deal.
Yeah, it shuts off almost everything, actually. He can't even do any Savage Roar play, so he's going to have to resort to the minions instead. Is this a scenario where you trade for the Keeper of the Grove, or Admirable? Are we going to play like Admirable here and just go for face here?
This is a spot where I feel like Zombie Chow should definitely be trading into this Lothar. It's like this is the least amount of value I think your opponent's going to get from this for a very long time. I don't mind attacking either the Keeper of the Grove or the face in this situation. I think with 2 Savage Wars, I probably would tend to favor going for face. But I certainly can see an argument otherwise.
Sjow thinking very deeply on the trades he wants to make. He also has a hero power to weave in, and you can trade your hero power into just a lot of threats right now. The easy trade would just be to go for face, but you can also possibly just run into the Lothar in order to set up the more obvious play of the Lothar going into your Druid of the Claw.
Wow, he's actually setting up for double Savage Roar here if his opponent doesn't have anything. Lothar is. That's a really, really aggressive stance. I really would have wanted to see this Zombie Chow run into this Lothar, because now this position that he's in, swipe is, it feels like it's so beneficial for your opponent to play swipe right here.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, not only does Lothar have 1 swipe, but double swipe is in Lothar's hand right now.
That could be something he's hunting for. Show's the one. We're on Show's turn right now, correct?
Yes, we are on Show's turn.
So, like,
yes.
Sjow does have 2 swipes in his hand, but I think what Lothar's trying to do here is actually, when he makes this Zombie Chow play, he could be trying to get a swipe out of Sjow, so that way he can play Dr. Boom on a safer board. That's definitely a possibility.
Unfortunately, it's not going to really work out for him because of the double swipes. Yeah, first swipe is going to come down, and it might send mixed signals to Lothar right now. Lothar might feel a bit confident that the second swipe is going to be fairly rare coming from Show's hand, but he's going to get punished if Dr. Boom comes on the board. And when I say punished, I mean, like, Dr. Boom isn't going to be as efficient as it is normally, but it's still going to do a lot of work.
I think so. Innervate's not a strong draw at the moment. You can get that extra shade on board. I'm curious how much of a difference that makes. He does have 2 Savage Wars though, so I think that probably every single minion you can get is something you need to take right now.
You're not really afraid of anything like Azure Drake swipe either, so it's very rare for your opponent to both have Azure Drake and Innervate and the second swipe in hand, so I don't think that's a consideration at all.
Azure Drake, I think, is honestly, in a lot of these Druid builds, it's taken a backseat to Sludge Belcher because Piloted Shredder has been so prevalent in the metagame right now.
Yeah, exactly. The Sludge Belcher trades so favorably against the Pilot Shredder, whereas the Azure Drake trades so unfavorably.
Yeah.
But then again, like, a lot of lists do have that one Azure Drake still as a reminiscent of previous days, because Azure Drake plus the swipe is like pretty much the one way for Druid to come back from an extremely unfavorable board position.
I think Lothar's debating unveiling a shade this turn, and I'm not really sure that he should. A lot of this thought also might have just been whether or not he should coin Innervate this shade also, and I definitely think he should be doing that. And this damage, wow, he's actually going to trade into the Lothar with a shade. I really don't like that. What is he playing around here when that happens? Is he playing around Innervate Force Nature Savage Roar?
I think that's a possibility. I guess he also doesn't want the Lothar to get any favorable trades right now. For example, if the Lothar trades into, I don't know, like the Piloted Shredder, that might be a little worse. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. It's just overall more of the safer alternative.
You know, he may be feeling like one of the only ways he loses this game is just something like Innervate Force Nature Savage Roar. And if that's what he's thinking, that trade makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, but that's probably an incorrect assessment, as we know he can lose from something like just trading the shade in and then swiping his opponent.
Oh my gosh, 4 damage from the Boombot goes on his opponent's shade. As double Savage Roar here, is this actually enough to close it?
I think he's at, yeah, there's no way. The Druid, the opposing Druid is at 27 HP, and there's a Sludge Belcher in the way, but I think we're going to see at least one Savage Roar come down here.
That's 26 points of damage, so if this Boombot hits face, that would be lethal. Like, if he doubles Savage Roars here, he can hero power. His face takes out Sludge Belcher. The Boombot runs into the 1/2 token. And then the rest of this is 25 points of damage.
Oh, wow. That's all I can say.
Wait, is that 26 points of damage? 19 plus 7. No. Yeah, it's 26 points of damage, sorry. So this Boombot hits face for 1. That's it.
All right. This is the perhaps the final turn of this day, actually.
Oh my gosh, it hit shade, but even still, how on earth is Sjow going to get out of this? He's down to 1 HP. And look at the presence that Lothar has on the board.
That's just amazing.
How on earth does Sjow win this game? I don't think there's any way to. I think that's game.
Yeah, that
Wait a minute.
is game. Wait, Doomsayer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's always the Doomsayer possibility.
Does Sjow see it? He has to go through all the possibilities. He has to think, there's no way I can win with any of the other possibilities. So I think he has to go for that. So Doomsayer plus hero power would bring him out of lethal.
Oh my gosh, this is so awful. I think he sees it. That's really his only chance. Is this going to be the game in competitive play where we see Doomsayer make the difference?
There always has to be that one game. I don't think we've seen it yet where Doomsayer just completely turns around the game. But I'm hoping for more excitement here and what already is a very exciting day of Hearthstone.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe he has to go for this.
No.
Yeah, and Sjow recognizes that he has lost. Wow. Well, that was a lot of math that Lothar was doing in those couple of turns, and rightfully so. I mean, that was so much damage he put forth there. That was, wow, that was